Okay, I'm starting to get to the sort of fun part to this project, which also may be the part that's going to kill it. But you see how quickly we got to this stage in the painting. It's just a step-by-step thing. So now I'm trying to get that trunk of the tree. And it will, I think I'm going to use some burnt sienna with some cobalt. And so it gets sort of a grayish, a warm gray look. And sort of sketch it in. And I notice on this reference that makes it interesting is the fact that this tree is, you can't see that, like you can see the whole tree in these, but it sort of goes off the edge of the page. So I'm going to go crazy with the fan brush over here. So I want to have the tree so that there is room for the fan brush to finish it. So I'm just going to do something like this. Now that's very wet. And if I get a stiff brush, I can lift a little bit on one edge to get some dimension. And I am going to layer over this when I get close to what I want. So you want to see that stuff behind it. So I notice there's like a center portion in here where all the fronds come out. And they come out like that. So it's a matter of just using your reference picture to get, just sort of remind yourself how things look. I have not studied palm trees until now, so it's one thing about painting. You'll end up studying, if you paint something you haven't painted or haven't seen before, you get to know it pretty well. I tend to paint a lot of things that are in my backyard that I look at all the time. So I see that there's a layering of different greens. You know, this yellow green, and then behind that's the other darker green. So perhaps I'll mix up some of the warm green first and see what happens if get that sort of palm tree look. You know, I've done pretty good so far with these other elements of this picture. So I'm going to see how good I can do this. Yeah, you're going to get a lively feel when you use this fan brush for this, because it's loose. If I try to go and paint every frond with a detailed brush, that's another approach, but not what we're looking for here. So I'm looking for something more carefree, but realistic. So go a little darker with my green now. And being careful not to go too wet. If you see on one side of the frond, you see light, and the other side it's darker. And I don't think I got dark enough with that green, so I'm mixing up more blue in with my yellow. Yeah, that's it. So that gives you the contrast. And also I'm noticing that some of these are going in different directions. See, here's one going away from us. And don't want to do too many. So there's one coming down there, and then there's some going out here. Makes it more realistic. So I think there's a little bit of yellow, sort of a inside this. So orangey yellow in there. I'm going to try to get that next by just using a regular brush. Okay, I've added these other trees on the side. Now, here I'm going to do some lifting. So, because some of the background's showing through. So in order to do that, I take a brush, wet it with water, clear water, and it's a damp brush. So I take up some moisture, and what happens is you end up picking up paint. You could take your paper towel and blot. So I'm doing that because I am going to put color down. Just like with regular trees that we did, other deciduous trees, that we tend to find around here. Branches will cast a shadow on the trunk. So I want to lift this so that I can then go back in and put some shadow in. Here I needed to do this as well on this side. So the shadows will give it some interest. Also, when I did that, it created a little bit of more dimensionality to the trunk. And you can add texture. I think it needs to be not yellow, but sort of a warm black. Now, some colors will not lift well, so if you use phthalo colors, they will not lift. So I tend to avoid phthalos, if you're familiar with those. Phthalos, chemical process, they just stain your paper. They're good for very deep contrast in paintings, but unless you're sure about what you want and that you don't want to lift, I would not recommend using them. Okay, I'm going to let that dry and then look at this and see what else I need. Now, this type of beach is pretty, well, plain. You can have all these dunes and everything. But I see there's a shadow, and I can get that with I'm going to start putting my shadow on the beach. Now that doesn't have to be precise. You want to get something that that looks good. A lot of times I'll put cobalt as a shadow. But it might end up being looking green. So I'm going to do like a gray with a warm gray with my burnt sienna and my ultramarine, and see if I can get something really pale. And get something like that. So just some quick strokes. Fan brush might look good on this. You get a fan brush that's not been used. Oops. Something in it. Trying to make it look like a shadow rather than something else. And a shadow always meets the trunk. So if the shadow of a tree, it's going to go right to the trunk of the tree. It's not going to stop before it. Now that looks a little dark to me. Oh, let's see what happens if I blot it just a little bit. Whoops. And end up with a texture. The trunk gets a shadow as well. And on these, there's a shadow going down. So shadows kind of give an extra sense of realism. Get some going down here. So I think I finished this. I don't want to overwork it. Add a little color, some warm coloring with those fronds near the top. So it's sort of an orangish color. And if you wanted to play with one more thing, this is really a clean, clear beach, and I hate to do it, but I can't resist putting a little bit of sort of a little foliage coming up, reeds coming up from the beach. Now we see those on the east coast more in the dunes and everything, but at the risk of ruining this, I'm just gonna try, say, It's too wet. Yeah, it'll do better with a dry brush, so I'm picking that up. I do like it, so I can easily get rid of that. And we could say that's just texture in the sand. Now, what I was trying to do is a dry brush reeds coming up. So I need to practice that more. Over here. It's just not doing what I want. Maybe what I'm thinking of is more like this. Yeah. Something in the foreground. All right, so that resolved that little issue there. So, hope you like it. I may do some few other little things to touch this up, but it's basically finished.